Molly walked to her grandpa's house alone. She had been there many times, but today she couldn't find her way to her grandpa's house. The town has beautiful buildings, but it is sparsely populated and very deserted. She saw only one house with its lights on not far away. So she walked to the house with many trees in the yard. Confused, Molly came to the red door. She knocked on it. So, the door was opened and an elegant old woman in a long green dress came out and looked at the strange girl at the door.
I'm sorry to bother you, but I got lost. This address seems to be the address of my grandfather's house. Why do you live in this location?
Child, you are wrong. Your grandfather's address is still far away from here. But it's going to rain soon. Would you like to go inside and have a cup of tea?
It really is raining. Molly went into the house to take shelter. The kind old woman took Mary to the dining room and told her to have something to eat. Sitting at the table was the old woman's son, Abby. She warmly introduced her son to the girl. The shy and reticent Abby blushes when he sees a beautiful girl in his home. He said hello to her as he was not good with words. The two of them eat together. Molly saw through the window the big tree growing outside. It was getting late, so the old woman asked the girl to stay at their house so that her son could take her to her grandfather's house in the morning. It was raining heavily outside, so the girl stayed in the bedroom of their house. She heard the mother and son next door talking quietly about something. In the night, Molly stood uneasily in front of the window and saw the tree outside the window. She looked at the tall tree and drifted off to sleep. In the morning, Molly washed up and came out of her room. The old woman and her son, Abby, served her a delicious breakfast. Outside the window, the rustling of the leaves in the breeze echoed in her ears, and the sunlight poured into the room through the gaps in the leaves. Molly turned her head and saw the tree outside the window again. After eating, Abby took Molly to her grandfather's house. He knew the way and found it in no time. Molly was very grateful to him. The two of them fell in love with each other, and then they dated each other often and became lovers naturally. Finally, they were happily married. After the wedding ceremony, Abby's mother gave them a rough rope. Molly, very confused, but still left the rope to commemorate. After marriage, they lived happily. It's just that her husband, Abby, suffers from intermittent baldness, which he balds every fall, only to grow back the following spring. But it didn't matter to his wife, Molly, who loved him dearly.
Whether you have hair or no hair, I will love you as I always have.
Sometimes her husband would have sudden back pain or lumbar pain, and because he worked so hard, Molly would often find remedies to relieve his pain by applying hot compresses or giving him massages. Time flies, and in a flash, Molly and Abby have been married for many years, and their life is simple but happy. However, an accident came out of nowhere. One morning, there was a rumbling noise and a logger was cutting down a tree in the yard. At that moment, Abby was going to work. He suddenly screamed in pain, showing a distressed expression. His face turned white, his whole body stiffened, and looked like he was going to die. Molly was in a hurry to call a doctor, and Abby struggled to get up and spoke to her with all his might.
It was destiny, it was my fate. I thought we would be together forever, but now we have to be apart.
Don't talk nonsense, you just have a small health problem. I'm going to call the doctor.
Now it's time for me to come clean. In fact, I am not a human being, but a tree ghost. I am a tree and my soul is also a tree. And now, someone is cutting my trunk, and I know that I am about to lose my body. I am powerless, and I am about to die.
Abby let out a groan of pain, then collapsed weakly to the floor and then disappeared. Molly was anxious to tell Abby's mother, but she had disappeared too. Molly looked up and saw that the house they lived in was gone, and it was so desolate that there was no sign that anyone had ever lived there. But there was a tree that had been cut down. She saw that her grandfather's logging company had cut down the tree. She cried in front of the tree with sadness. When a resident passed by, Molly asked her about the house that was there and the people who lived in it. A neighbor who was familiar with the situation told her about it.
There was once a house here, and an old woman and her son lived there. But 10 years ago an accident took her son's life and the old woman was devastated. After the death of her son, the woman buried her son's ashes under a tree in the courtyard and tended to the sapling every day, using the tree to relieve the pain. But as the tree grew stronger, the old woman missed her son too much and finally hung herself from the tree with a rope. So the mother and son are no longer here, and the house has long been demolished. Molly was afraid, so she went to the temple and invited the monk. The monk came to the tree and told Molly that her husband was in fact the tree husband. After his ashes were buried under the tree, he became a tree ghost. The reason why Abby is bald in autumn is because he, like the tree, will shed its leaves in autumn and become a bare branch. When the wind and water rained on the tree, he would feel sick, so much so that when the tree was finally cut down, he, as a tree ghost, would feel pain and disappear. His mother's ghost surrounds the tree, guarding the tree ghost. Molly used to take shelter from the sun under the tree in the summer heat and from the rain when it rained heavily. It was this tree that sheltered Molly from the wind and rain when she was traveling. So the spirit of Abby's mother created an illusion to lure her into the house when she was lost. She only wanted Mal-I to love her son, so that he would not be alone and would have someone to keep him company. Molly asked a monk to recite sutras for the spirits of mother and son, while she struggled to have the large tree cut down and replanted in the yard to continue planting. Molly looked at her tree husband. Because she missed him too much. She finally took out the rope she had kept and hanged herself on the tree.